Nā mihi mai ha e ho mā, kei te whakaronga mai koutou ki te rongopai a ihu karaiti hoki mai iti te puka puka a māka. Greetings to you friends, it's great to be with you again to share another reflection on the gospel of Christ coming from our journey through the book of Mark, through his gospel stories. I'm Buckshot, I'm part of our Wellington Chapter in Aotearoa, New Zealand. As everyone else has been saying, it's great to be part of this series. Today we continue our reading of Mark with the story of Jesus healing the daughter of a Syro-Phoenician woman. The child only briefly makes an appearance at the end of the story when the woman returns home after her encounter with Jesus. But first, just to go back a little bit, chapter 7 began 2 sessions ago with the religious elite travelling up to Galilee to investigate what Jesus was up to. Last week, Nigel spoke into the tension between the rules and purity of heart and what that looked like, what it meant to be clean or unclean at that time. Now, after this long-winded interrogation, Jesus has again hit the road, and he's looking to hide out unnoticed in a Gentile village in a non-Jewish region. He has become so well known that even in this faraway place, far from his home in foreign territory, he is still being recognised. This is long before electronic surveillance became a thing. He's actually back near where the chapter 5 demoniac was healed, which adds extra layers to our text for today that we can explore. Tyre, the village he was at, was also the base of an ancient foe of Israel's that you can read about in the book of Ezekiel. So there are many layers here, with Jesus again being fully embedded with people who were other to him, and here again battling demons. So let's read the text we have today from Mark chapter 7, verses 24 to 30. He left that place, that's in Galilee, and set out for the territory of Tyre. There he went into a house and did not want anyone to know he was there. But he could not pass unrecognized. At once a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit heard about him, and came and fell at his feet. Now this woman was a Gentile, by birth a Syro-Phoenician, and she begged him to drive the devil out of her. The children should be fed first, because it's not fair to take the children's food and throw it to little dogs. But she spoke up. "Ah, yes, sir," she replied. "But the little dogs under the table eat the scraps from the children." And he said to her, "For saying this, you may go home happy. The devil has gone out of your daughter." So she went off home and found the child lying on the bed and the devil gone. Again, Mark is giving us a fascinating episode this week. He pulls no punches and digs into weighty cultural, religious, and political matters. This story also has similarities to many of the other healing stories so far that we've read about, but with a few twists. So Jairus, the synagogue leader, brought his daughter to Jesus, like this Gentile woman. Jewish father and daughter, with today a Gentile woman and her daughter. After Jairus' daughter was healed, she was given food to eat. Food is a powerful motif in today's text also, and throughout the whole story of Mark. But first Jesus heads away from the world he knows and into this foreign place, which was even a hostile place for him historically. He's wanting to have a retreat where no one knows where he is. Maybe he's hiding out from those religious interrogators who came up from Jerusalem to check him out, because they would not want to be in a place like Tyre. Of course, though, he is recognized, maybe from his encounter with the pigs and that demoniac in the graveyard. So at once, this woman hears about Jesus being in town, and she has a problem child and she wants his help to sort her out. She gate crashes into the house in a similar style to the hemorrhaging woman in chapter 5. So again, this is a culturally inappropriate way to enter a house and invite yourself into someone's presence. An unknown woman approaching a man in the privacy of their residence was inconceivable in the honor culture of that day, and especially a Gentile woman approaching a Jew like this. The Syro-Phoenician woman is most definitely an other to Jesus, similar to Legion, the Roman veteran soldier, and she is being very awkward as well. Jesus' response to this intrusion is fascinating, even troubling for us in our modern world. In response to the woman's begging for help, he responds with a racial slur? Unbelievable. Is this intentional or accidental? Mark doesn't make that clear, but maybe this gives us an insight into the humanity of Jesus. Maybe he ain't always perfect, as some would want to promote. Possibly he is even a racist. He would have grown up and lived within a culture where slurs like this were used regularly about Gentiles, about others who were different to them. Maybe the slur just slipped out, or maybe he used it intentionally to provoke a reaction in the woman. And he said to her, "The children should be fed first, because it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to little dogs." Her response to the slur is powerful. "Ah, yes, sir, but little dogs under the table eat the scraps from the children." Eating and bread have appeared a number of times in our journey with Jesus through Mark's story. There was the clash in the cornfields over eating the wrong food at the wrong time. Last week, Nigel covered the disciples eating with incorrectly and dirty hands. It was also noted when the disciples were sent out that they should take no bread, while at the same time Mark inserted that flashback of Herod eating a banquet while he plotted to kill John the Baptist. And those same disciples sent out with no bread soon were feeding a multitude in the wilderness of Galilee, and not realizing still the significance of that bread. This Gentile woman's response is increasing the tension of an already awkward encounter. She is defending the rights of her people to be at the table and sharing in the bread, the food that the children Jesus refers to have first right to. Of all the encounters that Jesus has on the road, this is the one time when his verbal opponent masters him and he concedes to their words. A battling Gentile woman gets one over Jesus, and he submits to her teaching, to what she has to say to him. His response is, "For saying this, you may go home happy. The devil has gone out of your daughter." What can we take from this encounter? If Jesus was in fact a racist caught up in ethnic and male privilege, he allows himself to learn from this woman and walk back from that place of arrogance and ignorance. If he made the slur intentionally, he was modelling to Mark's first readers how to come back from racial superiority and embrace solidarity with the stranger. Either way, the story shows that going on a journey to break down barriers and include the outsider, the stranger, the other, is an awkward road. In this process, indignities and uncomfortable moments will occur that we need to navigate with grace and care. I have experienced this feeling many times, as have my hosts in those other places. But by going on this journey, the demons and the devils of racial privilege and the harm they cause have been destroyed. Freedom, solidarity, communitas, and love have grown instead. These uncomfortable moments are part of the cost of inclusion and building bridges across traditional lines or social boundaries. May we not be afraid of those awkward encounters, but rather seek them out as Jesus has and embrace them in our lives today. There is more to this text we have today, though, in the way Mark has placed it in his story. The earlier healing of Jairus, his daughter, led on to the encounter in the Jewish Galilean wilderness where multitudes were fed. In the next few weeks, we will hear about crowds being fed on the Gentile side of the lake. This healing and inclusion at the table of this Gentile woman and her daughter opens the way for another Gentile to be healed next week and then the feeding in the Gentile wilderness. So in this process, Jesus is showing that both the children and the others, the dogs, are being fed and satisfied. Last week, Mark was declaring that all foods are clean, and now he has Jesus showing us that everyone is welcome at the table. This is indeed incredibly good news about how the kingdom of God is and how it affects the real world we live in now. Mark's Jesus recognizes too that this message would fall on deaf ears. Last week we heard Jesus asking us to listen to what he was saying about purity and cleanliness. Today our text shows us what that means in reality. No one is unclean, not even the Gentile dogs, that is, people like to other and exclude. Unfortunately, this Jesus who radically includes everyone at his table will be frustrated in the coming weeks as his closest disciples struggle to see and hear what this really means. So the question for us must be, how are we getting on today as followers of this Jesus that Mark is presenting to us? Do we struggle too with this Jesus that Mark is telling us about? We may have moved on from racial segregation, but there are many other groups that Christian folk are renowned and often found to be othering, demonizing, and excluding. Friends, can I encourage you to stick with the story, stick with this journey, even if these things are hard to hear. Continue to trust in this way of Jesus and be pleasantly surprised by the fruit of embracing those on the other side of whatever side there is. Recently I had the beautiful moment of being spontaneously prayed for and blessed by a patched Māori biker as we prepared to leave a clubhouse party. In years gone by, we have had many awkward moments at that location as we have navigated cultural, political, and social boundaries together. The fruit of this journey, though, is priceless. And I believe that this is where and I believe that this is the where and the how of the kingdom of God that Jesus and Mark are presenting to us is found, in the cut and thrust of crossing into the space of the other, embracing them along with those uncomfortable silences and slurs, listening to them, and then sharing food. We will see the demons we have feared being made into nothing. Be strong in this way of Jesus, friends, despite the upsets and the awkwardness. Rangamari o te atua ki a tātou i a tata katoa. Cheers.